Well, as I wander into tonight's review for Afterlife by Yeet, I find myself struggling because I'm not good at reviews. And as I thought about that, like, why? Why am I not good at that? The obvious question is, well, I don't do them, so I have no experience, so of course I'm not that good. But then I also realized I'm not a fan of music reviews, album reviews. I understand their importance. I understand why people are drawn to them. I understand, that basic concept. But in an age where you can literally touch a piece of glass with your finger and listen to an entire album, in my opinion, going through the process of kind of detailing every track and the sounds that exist within and so on, I just kind of go, feels a little dumb, feels a little dumb. Go listen to it. But there are people who don't want to. It's new and it's scary, and I like to exist in my comfort zone of music, and I only want to wander out when I know when it's safe. And that's challenging for me, especially now, recently, right in the last year and a half or so, where every week it's been new music. That's all I've been living for the last 18, 20 months. So I wander into Afterlife in the review that I'm supposed to make for this, and I realize, honestly, in terms of the album itself, I really don't have a lot to say. I enjoyed the album. I listened to it quite a bit, and then I honestly found myself going, okay, and moving on. I don't think it's a bad album. It's been funny reading the different opinions that exist about this album, both from the fans and the haters. Specifically, for those of you who did not watch the reaction, or at least all the way to the end, there was a point at the end where I kind of went on this rant. Started talking about how this genre, I feel like, which I'm not an expert in, so let's be very clear with that. Also, another thing that makes me uncomfortable with doing a review is the fact that I'm going to review an album for an artist who has multiple albums, and this is the only one I've heard, so I feel out of place in doing that as well, but it is what it is. I went on this rant about this specific subgenre in general, and the things I've heard on Whole Lotta Red and DS2 and Afterlife and some of the other trap albums, Astroworld, I suppose, and what have you. And I started ranting about how lyrically I feel like this area of hip hop needs to evolve, because I personally am pretty tired of hearing about lean, hearing about chains, cars, guns. I feel like everyone's kind of jumping into the same pool to draw from in terms of lyrical inspiration. And I did read some comments saying the point is to be vapid because it's kind of like a rejection of thought, in the sense that you're trying to drop into this trance and shove all these things out of your mind. Okay, I'm probably recalling the comment incorrectly, honestly. But to me, I feel like it makes an album, it makes music, it makes an artist one-dimensional when they don't need to be. It's like having a sports team, let's take football for example, and saying, no, our team is, we focused on our passing game and that's it. You don't want to worry about the running game? No, we don't do any running on our football team, just passing. We're going to be really good at passing, and that's how we're going to succeed. We don't care about running at all. That's how I feel about artists who essentially don't care about lyrics, because I feel like it's an opportunity that's wasted. Now, in terms of Yeet, specifically with this album, while lyrically there isn't a whole lot for me to dive into, there are some lines here and there, like Now, that track, although I guess that was a little geeky, interesting track, kind of this mourning almost over having bands, and now people are vibing with you. When you were broke, people wouldn't, and it's just kind of like this strange, sad realization that maybe people are only hanging around with you because you got some money. The final track, Myself, obviously he's kind of getting into his feels a little bit. It's not like this album is completely devoid of lyrical content. But then, as I just explored this idea in my own mind, right, we need a Nirvana moment, right? We need somebody to come in here and smash this genre open and make all these stupid ideas look stupid. As I started reading comments from the haters about Yeet and about this album, I started to realize this is the Nirvana moment in a sense. Not to that extreme, I should say, but in a sense. I remember when Nirvana hit the scene, and one of the biggest complaints people had, you can't hear what he's saying. Like they were just Weird Al Yankovic made a parody, and in the video he's spitting out these mothballs because his mouth is full of these, cotton balls or whatever, to make fun of the fact that nobody can understand what Kurt Cobain's saying. He's not saying anything that makes any sense. And he was basically just being laughed at and pointed at by the rest of the industry for being this terrible singer and this basic guitar player and what have you. And it really didn't fucking matter. Because it blew up and grunge blew up and it made the 80s metal scene, the hair band scene, look so fucking stupid. And that's what has been the most fun for me with this album, I think, so far, is just kind of seeing some of those similar aspects with Yeet, and maybe towards, the other artists I haven't listened to yet, but anything in this subgenre, and how you've got essentially the old heads, right? This isn't rapping, these aren't lyrics, this is garbage, etc. And while I do feel there are some songs, during the live stream, I coined the phrase mud rap, where it just sounds like the vocals drop down so low into the bass and into the sound, it's just like he's bubbling in the mud. There are other tracks where Yeet brings a lot of heat. And I think vocally, that was probably the most surprising thing to me about Yeet as an artist, is he has so many different sounds in his voice, and he does change up his flow. Now, yes, you can argue, okay, he's not using an intricate rhyming scheme, and he's not necessarily telling a story or whatever. But the vocal performance is still there. It is still there, regardless of how you feel about the writing. And I think that's what surprised me the most about this album. Yeet, as an artist, has a lot of versatility with his voice, even though there are plenty of people out there that would hate to admit to that. And I think in terms of the production, while I feel this album does run a little long, and it's strange because the first half I have fewer hearts, but the songs I do like, I like a lot. And in the back half, I have more hearts. But I also feel that as the album starts to settle into its groove, that groove kind of turns into a rut, and I start to lose interest. I feel like we could cut 3, 4, 5 tracks from the album and still get the same thing overall. Oh, I totally lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere, and then just boop, off it went. Yeah, wow, that was gone. That was great. What was I saying?
You were talking about...
It was so good. I started out so well. The first half was great, and the second half it settles into a rut. And I was gonna transition into this. I don't fucking know. Do I cut it? Let's just leave it in. Let's just own it, right? Let's just own it. Like I said, not a good review. But, in terms of the songs I do like, Nothing I Change, I think is great. Oh, this is where I was going with it. I was going with the production. I was talking about the production. I was trying to. I think the production overall is pretty damn good. Some of the production, the structure gets a little repetitive, and sometimes I do lose interest. But overall, I think it's got like a good, thick, bassy feel. Sometimes the bass is a little too much, and it bleeds out through some of the tracks. Nothing I Change, I really like. Split, I really like. Heavyweight, I really like because of those little awoo, The songs that I do enjoy quite a bit. Let's see what else has got hearts here. Sums to Do. Everybody likes their arithmetic, and when you've got sums to do, that's fun, right? Slam is a cool one. Now I did talk about a little bit. That one's cool. Schmunk with Youngboy. I think Youngboy did a great job there. The opening track, No More Talk, is good too. I mean, overall, this is an enjoyable album to me. And it is strange that I enjoyed it, but then I did get to a point where it was like, okay, I've kind of heard it, and now I'm done. I guess that's the best little summary for a review that I could have on this album is, for me personally, once I ran through it a couple times, I went, okay, that's what this is. I've heard other people have totally opposite experience where they weren't really into it, and then they've just been hooked on it ever since and just obsessed and listening to Yeet over and over again. Not really for me in terms of the repeatability, but I don't say that in the sense of, not that I would not listen to this album again, but I didn't have the experience of the album pulling me back for more listens and more listens. But it is cool for what it does. I will say that for sure. And I certainly don't hate on it. I'm glad I listened to it. One thing I do want to mention is that, you know, some people are asking why are you even doing this, especially when in the poll, which I have right here in front of me, SZA got 44% of that vote. When I said SZA, Afterlife, or, you know, the joke answer, why haven't you listened to your favorite artist yet? The second place vote was the joke answer at 34%. Yeet got 22%. But what's interesting, and why I wanted to do this album, and why on Saturday my wife and I are going to do another live stream for the Slow Tie album, Ugly, the Yeet video got more views in 24 hours than the SOS did in a week. Now, I don't say that to say, oh, we're going to start chasing views. I say that to say, I feel like this channel in general, through my journey of hip hop and as I've been converted, has shifted from, oh, let's expose Bob to this and this and this and this, to, okay, now he's converted. Now let's protect him from the strange stuff and only have him listen to what's been approved, in a sense. Not to say that the community itself is like a form of gatekeepers intentionally, but I do think that has become a bit of a byproduct. Just by natural way of what I've been listening to, who enjoys it, and then what they recommend as a subset from that. And so the Yeet thing for me is to try and break out of this bit of an insulated bubble that has formed over the channel. And it's not to say that I'm going to start listening to all this crazy shit. The journey is still the priority, in my opinion. There's still tons of classic hip hop albums that I've not heard. But I also think it is important to break out of the approved circle and go exploring. Because just like people want to hear a review so they know, is it safe to listen to? Also, people don't want to just wander off into the wilderness and start listening to all this bizarre shit. And I do. I like wandering off into the weird, bizarre shit, which has kind of got me in trouble, honestly, at the end of the year last year when I was doing all the experimental stuff. I think people were like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, so there's that. Overall, I enjoyed Yeet. I enjoyed the album. I don't know if I'll find a window to do more of his music, given all the backlog that I have for Yeet. But it's just been an interesting experience this week, listening to this album, seeing comments, seeing the haters, seeing the fans, seeing the clash in opinions, and thinking back to all the things I remember hearing about Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, singing, lyrics, guitar playing, etc., and how some of these things, they just never, ever change. Yeah, I guess that's it. Tomorrow's another vlog. Friday will be Lil Wayne, the Carter one. First time listening to Lil Wayne. That'll be fun. And we'll see you guys soon.